Okay, good morning, everyone. It's a small room, but I have to use the mic because we are recording. So please also use the mic in front of you later on when we speak, even though actually you don't need it to hear from each other, but we try to document. So don't feel strange using these loudspeakers. So welcome everyone to Jogja. Welcome to this workshop, this face-to-face workshop for our pilot blended learning GHRP and IR course. It's really exciting for us to see all of you here after so many months of preparations. When did we start discussing this? Last year?
I think even before.
Even before. It took so long.
Because we started the blended learning for GSRP
Yeah.
a year before.
So it was already the year before, so it's a lot of work has been put to it, and also in this past few months you went through the online sessions, and so it's good to finally to bring you all together here in Jogja, and all of the RTCs are invited, and most of you are here, so it's actually like a big family reunion rather than a pilot workshop. I mean, you see here different siblings, brothers and sisters of the RTC. I mean, we have here the oldest children, the oldest child is our Colombian colleagues. Sideim, our big sister, they started 2008, 2007, something like that. Dr. Nancy Saravia started it off, and we worked with her, and Lydia Gomez at the beginning, and then Andres, and now we have you here. And well, you started off with EPPE, correct? That was your strong points, and we worked on that. So we also had a lot of assistance, and you're not only the oldest, you're the farthest from here. So we can only imagine what you went through to come here, the trips. I haven't been to Colombia, so I could not really imagine. But thank you for making the trip. Muchas gracias y bienvenidos. Welcome. So they're the earliest one. And then 2010, we were born. And when TDR was giving birth to this RTC, they sent us a very special midwife. And this is her, Farah Lakshmi, for mentoring us, for bringing us up, and again, being here with us, because this is also something new for us, and for you to be here again is a privilege for us. And 2010 actually is not just us, because it was actually a triplet, fraternal, 3 children, so us, and then we had colleagues from Kazakhstan. That was the RTC from Euro. Unfortunately, last minute they had to cancel, so they're not here with us. And then the other brother or sister we had are from our neighbor from the Philippines. That's the RTC from the West Pacific region. Unfortunately, they're still on the flight now because they had a delay last night and they missed their connecting, but they should join us after lunch. So hopefully they will join this reunion after lunch. So there were 4 of us. And then we got excited when TDR told us that they were going to have another baby, which is based at the AMRO region, at the Eastern Mediterranean Regional Office. So that's our colleagues from the Institute Pasteur in Tunis, Dr. Afif Ben Salah. He initiated. He's now in Oman. Please bear with them. They are struggling. 2 a.m. is tough to land, and now to already get started up running in the workshop. And then the youngest child, the youngest baby, Ghana, the newest RTC for Afro, for the African regions, our Ghanaian teams, but they were born up and running anyway, so they do so many things already, even faster than some of us, especially in IR. So here you don't see the difference anymore, the youngest and the oldest. We're all more or less at the same stage. So welcome, Phyllis and Franklin. And along the way, each of the RTCs make friends. Their boss is a good friend of mine, but because there's also a synergy, and they brought in something which we don't have. It's a good complementary. They have a very strong expertise in e-learning, IT, and these kinds of things. So it's only when we're with them that we had more confidence in actually toying with this idea of blended learning. And that's when we started to have this idea of developing this blended learning for GHRP, IR, and then piloting it. And at some stage, Donnie suggested, why not pilot with the RTCs, right? And because we thought that you guys have a lot of experience in running trainings in the region, so you know what works, what doesn't work, what's feasible, what's not. And some of you also, I think, joined the MOOC, and so you can also have some comparison and give some insights of what works there, what doesn't, and how this could be better and how can improve. So we would benefit a lot from your inputs through that. But also perhaps some of you might be interested to take this up, to use it in your own region. No obligation, you're not obliged or anything. That's your decision to make, but it's just that you are here and you have the experience. In any case, we're happy that you take this opportunity, that you decided to participate in this pilot, yeah? and to join also this face-to-face workshop, which the dates were changing all the time. We have to apologize for that. I actually had a debate with Donnie. Are you sure these guys are coming on Saturday and Sunday? It's a weekend. But he assured me that you guys are coming, so we're good to go. And so thank you to come here, even though it's a weekend, so it's a sacrifice. I myself have to apologize because I won't be here today and tomorrow. I will join you on Monday. Because of other commitments beforehand, but I'll join you again on Monday. So again, thank you for coming, for joining us in this journey, for this blended learning development. They say a journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step. So this morning, we're taking this big single step together as an RTC family. Yeah? So with that, I wish you a fruitful and productive workshop. Let me rephrase that. I mean, wish is wishful, it's very passive. Let's make it fruitful and productive. Let's try to make it as fruitful and productive as we can make it to be. And also, let's make it as fun as possible. It's Saturday and Sunday, for goodness sake. Loosen up, people. Let's not get too serious. So do as you like to make this as fun as possible. We did have an agenda which was revised and revised even last night. Now it's printed. But feel free to fill in any fun session if you wish. Our Colombian sister, I think today is going to teach us salsa or something. This afternoon, it's hidden on the agenda somewhere. And then tomorrow, Diljish Dorothy is going to teach us some Bollywood moves. Afternoon also. And then Phyllis is going to teach us some Ghanaian song on Monday, something like that. So feel free. We're looking forward to that because, again, this is just among us, and we try to make this as fun as possible. And also beyond this workshop, I mean, some of you, this is the first time in Jogja. So take this opportunity as well. We're proud of this city. It's the second most popular tourism destination in Indonesia after Bali. So if you have the opportunity, if you have the time, there's plenty of things to see, even though it's dark because we finish at 5. So after sunset, but there's still quite a lot of things to see because a lot of the shops are still open, a lot of things to see, to try, and most importantly, to buy. So don't take home your per diems, spend it here and help the local economy. So that's it. I think that's pretty much what I want to say. I leave you now. See you on Monday and have fun. Okay, take care. So Don is in charge now.
Thank you, Yodi. Yodi speak as a coordinator of the RTC and also my boss as a vice dean of research. Yeah. So again, welcome to our. Thank you, Yodi. Have a good trip. So.
Okay, today we will going to. Sorry.
Who are you?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I'm Weni, who's the one that always email and send email to you every day and asking about ticketing and everything. So. Tonight I didn't sleep well because one of the participants from Philippines is so no news until this morning. Okay, thanks God. Anyway, and then for today, later after finish for this course today, we going to Prambanan Temple. That means for the event, social event. So the Ramayana Ballet we call. And then we will ready at 6 p.m. at the lobby, so we can going together. And then the second time for the boarding pass, would you please to send the admin in front of this meeting room. So when you're on tea time, you can send everything and the ticket, visa, anything. That's it. So if it you anything, so please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, this evening we will see a performance, a ballet performance. It's a classical Java performance, but the story is come from India. So we have a lot of Indian influence in our culture before when we have a big Hindu temple you will visit. So yes, welcome to the 2 courses that we will do in the next 4 days. It's a bit ambitious that we have 2 courses back to back and as a pilot, but we'll try to make it as fun as possible and also as effective as possible. And we really want to have your inputs for these courses. And then we will give the ground rules that we can agree on. And then the course overview, what we will do in the next 4 days. You already have, we sent a tentative agenda before, and then we revised it. Last night also we revised it. So now I think the one who already we think fixed is for the next 2 days, and I think we still try to some tweaking for the second half of the courses. Oh, it's not working. Is it? Oh. So just also for the introduction, I think the one thing we haven't done is that expectation from you. So Dorothy, will you help us? Just to mention what's your name, from which institution, and what is your expectation coming here, please.
I would like to thank you and to congratulate you for the e-learning course. I really enjoy it. And I want to acknowledge all the logistic team, please, because they, for all the efforts provided and all the facilitators. And thank you very much.
Thank you. So what will be your expectation for the next 4 days?
My expectation,
yes,
to learn about this course, and we want to implement it in our RTC.
Okay.
This is the first expectation.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hind. I'm a medical doctor and epidemiologist, public health specialist. I'm also from the RTC in Tunisia. I'm since 2015. I'm also happy to see some faces like Phyllis and Ghanan team, because I was part of the fellowship in 2015. And now I'm very happy to be here and very excited, tired but excited. So my expectation, like my colleague said, we really enjoyed this course. We found it easier than, because I was part of the MOOC done by TDR, so we found it easier and we really want to implement it in Tunisia. So that's all. Thank you very much.
I'm an epidemiologist, physician by training. I work in the RTC, mainly in GHRP and the GCPA courses. And for me, it's a new experience about IR, so that's my expectation for this workshop, is to learn a little bit more about IR and how to use that for our projects in CIDAIN.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria Isabel. You can call me Machi to avoid the confusion of Marias. Machi is my nickname. So I'm a bacteriologist with an MPH in global health. I'm working at CIDAIN, kind of coordinating the area of implementation research, but the reality is that we are in the learning phase. We conduct the MOOC in Latin America, and we have learned a lot, but still we need to learn much about that. And my expectations are, since we want to learn, but also sensitize the community, the research community in Colombia and in Latin America. So we want to see what are the best strategies to do that, to position this area of research in our region. So I'm very happy to be here because I want to try different strategies. We have also worked with Phyllis in another course related to IR. So I want to get the best of each strategy and build something that is appropriate for our region. So I think it's very important for us to be here. Thank you.
From Center of Tropical Disease from UGM. So I'm a local person here. I was joining TropMed last year, 2017, so it's new for me, and I was like expecting to learn more about IR and how to develop and how to conduct like IR research. Thanks.
Hello, good morning. My name is Lutfi Azzatunisa. You can call me Lutfi. I'm from Yogyakarta, from UGM too, same with Uja. And right now I'm working for the Central for Tropical Medicine in UGM, and I'm a research assistant. What I expect from this course is that I can learn and observe from this senior researcher here and share the idea what research that you are conducting right now. Maybe I can get some idea to do my research here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regards to this workshop is to get a practical aspect of the proposal development, and also how to facilitate in terms of teaching others, implementers, and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So I know most of the faces. All right, so my name is Phyllis again, the coordinator for the Regional Training Center, ARTC. So just going into the expectation. So for instance, we've had lots of requests from participants who did the MOOC, wanting to come and do the face-to-face. And I think that is an example of how we need to use online and then the face-to-face. And this gives us a typical way of learning how it comes together. But the other thing that I am also learning for the first time going through the online one is the GHRP. So we've done a lot in IR, but not GHRP. So yeah, and I think that it is going to be a good opportunity for us in Ghana and how we can put this forward in our region. Thank you.
Me Lango, very long name, so call me Vara. And there's a badge for each of you. And so you can have your nicknames right there, so then everybody else knows how to call you. So that's my first request. Yeah. So I've been working with WHO TDR and with the regional RTCs for now nearly 10 years since this concept has come up in various capacities. And I think my expectation from this workshop is that we all together contribute to how we can better this blended learning program, because a lot of you seem interested in implementing it, but we are still in our infancy. It needs to be fine-tuned. So we look forward to your valuable contributions, so then we can have some product that then could be useful to be implemented at the RTCs, right? Look forward to your very active participation and contributions.
Diljit, you want to say something?
Hi, so my name is Diljit. I come from Institute of Public Health in India. Unlike everyone, like doctors and public health, I come from an IT background. I coordinate the e-learning program at our institute. So this blended learning was a dream, kind of, it was a discussion which happened like 2 years before, and it's great to see that it's working right now. So I'm really excited to see how we can improve it also, because when you test it, there's a lot of improvements that you can do even within the online, the experience that you can get in and from an online, and then how that can be integrated into a face-to-face thing. So that's really exciting for me in terms of delivery, especially because we have tried to do it within our country. Now when you're doing it like across the world with different cultures, it's really important how that also affects the learning experience. So really curious to learn, and looking forward for all the feedbacks and suggestions on the way. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
where I do an implementation research in primary care for non-communicable diseases, that is for diabetes and hypertension management. So that's my background. I also handle the education domain at Institute of Public Health, and that's my interest in this whole thing. We did it 3 times in India, I think already, since 2016, in a completely face-to-face manner. We run completely online programs apart from this. We do a course in scientific writing, we do a course in health financing, we do one on public health management. So there's a lot of experience with the e-learning, only e-learning, but this is the first time we've done the blended, and so looking at the pedagogy as well as the learning experience and all of that. So I'm very interested to hear from you, your feedback, and to see how we can develop this thing even better.
I'm coordinating the IR course. Also, I coordinating the Center for Tropical Medicine, and my background is medical doctor, but mostly with the epidemiology training, working mostly on infectious disease, and nowadays a lot of implementation research studies. And my expectation for this workshop, sorry. First of all, thank you all of you for being here as our guinea pigs, because it's still really, I mean, it's evolving ideas, and from time to time we have new ideas, and I think with your helps we can make it more mature and ready to deliver product to the audience. And I think we also, another expectation is to discuss with you how the best way to deliver this course, both online and offline. I will tell you later, but in my invitation letter, that there's a motivation of this, because we want to also shorten the conventional course, because in IR, for example, there's a lot of requests from the program manager, mostly, that they cannot be away for quite a long time. So there's a need for the market. And the best way to do this, I think, is in consultation with the experts here. So thank you very much. So that's the expectation. Farah, you want to say something? Okay, thank you very much. So I would like to all of us agree on the ground rules. This is something that we always mention in every course that we did, and also usually Farah really insists on this. There are several ground rules. At first, I know you are very busy, and you being away doesn't mean that you will stop your work. So I hope that we can silence our mobile devices. If you still need to answer the call, for example, you can do it outside and just be there. And because it's quite tight agenda, and we try to see the best way to fit it, so we expect that we can be start on time and finish also on time. And then you are all experts, so hope we can have an active discussion and equal participation from all of us. One person speak at a time, and then we are from different cultures, so mutual respect will help us to have a productive discussion. Expect us that we can be here for the next 4 days. So thank you. Farah, you want to say something now? Yes, please. Yeah, you're right. We haven't mentioned about that.
We're not imposing anything on you, and that is a democratic decision that we have made. Perfect. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So
I can continue if you would.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe. Okay. Thank you, Tony. Yeah. So just wanted to, I think a lot of it has been said already by Yodi. He did little more than welcome. So we have this GHRP and IR. They've been running as face-to-face training courses. They're highly demanding in terms of time, in terms of money. So there's definitely a need for a blended learning program. maybe the theoretical component could all be taught in the online, but the practical component with a lot of learning and discussion can take place in the offline. There's a huge need for these courses. We are in this SDG era. And I think health is there across 13 of the 17 SDGs. Some people even argue it's there on 17 out of the 17 SDGs. So there's a huge need for health research involving human participants. And so we need to have these courses, both GHRP and IR. And as we already said, the limitation, just now Doni said we have program managers. Many people cannot absent themselves from work. We don't have so much money, so we need to look at alternatives. And we have fantastic technology. When we use our mobile devices on a day-to-day basis for ordering food, for getting taxi, for everything in life, why can't we use it for education? So I think that's also one of the reasons why we are really looking at a blended learning program. So now you have given your expectations, and we'll try to see how much we can fulfill of your expectations. But these are our objectives. When this course was designed, I think these were the objectives. So basically apply the knowledge that you gained from the online phase of both GHRP and IR, so that you will be in the end able to develop an IR protocol. So that's the whole objective of this. So application of the concepts that have been taught. So this is going to be more group activity, less of teaching. There's only going to be a little bit of recalling, but it's going to be a lot of group activity. So I'm sure there are lots of questions and doubts that you have from the online phase, because this is also the first time. So if you have already made a note of, if not, you can also start thinking about, and let us know what all questions and concerns you have. There are separate sessions where the facilitators will answer questions exclusively on the online phase. But more importantly, as Yodi has been saying, it's like piloting. So we want you to help us evaluate and make this course much better. So your suggestions on how we could improve this course is also one of our objectives. It meets the expectations as well. So right now, we, because of various reasons, have clubbed GHRP and IR. In reality, it may not be the case. You will either be running a GHRP or an IR course. So we now have a cramped 3-day agenda. But in real life, we would like to have an agenda exclusively for GHRP and for IR. So on the last day, we will all discuss together and arrive at what could be an ideal agenda. What are sessions that could go into the online phase? What are sessions that necessarily have to have the face-to-face component? So we kind of arrive together at an ideal agenda. And as you all rightly said, we would like you to explore the possibility of running this course at your own RTC. So I think it's fantastic that what we want as what we lay down as our objectives is pretty much the same as your expectations. So why are you all as the participants? Because you have all been in one way or the other involved either with GHRP or with IR. So either conceptualizing, developing, facilitating, or having received, so you already have some idea. So I think we have some new participants, but she's also been exposed to IR. So all of you in one way or the other has seen some of these contents, are familiar with the teaching methods. So you would really help us to pilot and give your feedback for improvement. Okay, so that's the whole idea of having this select team of participants. So little bit about the course outline. This is my last slide. So you see that on day 1 and 2, we have only given you the agenda now for the day 1 and 2. It's going to focus on the face-to-face GHRP. So just to let you know that the GHRP mainly focuses on ethics and quality. So we will not be dealing into the science at all. We'll be focusing on how does this affect the ethics? How does this affect the quality of data? And how do we go about doing it? Right? So that will be the focus on day 1 and day 2. And day 3 will be the development of the IR protocol, which is going to be more science. So it's going to be on your study design, the research question, the methods, data analysis, because we don't want these 4 days to be redundant and repetitive. In reality, there will be some overlap between these two courses, but at least the next 3 days we have ensured that we don't have contents repeating. So focus on ethics and quality on day 1 and day 2. On day 3, it will be focusing a lot more on science and related to IR. So what are we going to do? We'll have very minimum reflection of learning. So there'll be only very few sessions where we think we need to recall key messages. Most of it is going to be where you apply to your own research idea all of what you learned in the GHRP and the IR courses. So it's going to be a lot of group activity, and a group really is only 2 because we've got only two people from each of the team. So we have tables assigned there for you, and there will be facilitators moving around. So the most important component of the next 3 days is going to be application to your research, and I hope you have come prepared with your research proposal. If not, maybe we can give them 15 minutes time because we saved some time in the morning, then they can fine tune their presentation. And at the end of every group activity, there will be presentation. We don't know if all the 5 teams will be able to present in all the presentation sessions. Maybe for time constraint, 2 or 3 teams may do. So if you skip in one, then the other teams will present in the consecutive one. We try to catch up, but we may not be able to listen to everybody in all the sessions. That's just to let you know. But we don't know, we don't want to say, okay, you 2 teams, you present now. It's not going to be like that. You all work, and depending on who is ready and who is willing to present, we can take it forward. But remember, we will have equal participation, we will have active participation. Both of them are going to be there, right? So presentation will be by rotation, and then for the presentation and plenary discussion, we'll get together in this U shape, and for the discussion, we will be there. And day 4 is how are we going to operationalize this blended learning? And so we will have Diljit and Dorothy tell us about a lot more about the online and what kind of, what it demands from the RTCs to be able to handle it. So it's more about evaluation of the course as well as about how to operationalize this blended learning program, right? So this is the way the course is structured. If you have any questions, so you all, I think, have access to the Moodle platform, and Dorothy and Diljit will be uploading information onto the Moodle because they feel it's like, don't you have access? Moodle, or is it the platform, the
course,
yeah,
the online course.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's not Moodle, maybe, yeah. It's called the Moodle platform. Yeah. Yeah, so we will continue to be uploading the documents onto that very same platform. So not to be distributing by emails. So if there is anything, you will have to also constantly keep logging onto your onto that platform. So then you are having continuous access. So I think the latest that has been circulated is a template that you will use in the GHRP course. Has it been sent by email or has it been uploaded? Okay, it's on the Moodle, right? So you can actually access all the documents that we are going to be using in this course through the Moodle platform, right? So any questions? So the next session is going to be presentation. We have 15 minutes time. And if you think you need to fine-tune your presentation, this is a very good opportunity for you. Maybe you could either sit here or go to your tables and then kind of, yeah. We really save time. So we are on time, before time rather. Yeah? Okay. Any questions that you have? But please wear a badge so then we are familiar with your name. I know everybody, I guess, but for you to know one another, it's nice to have this.
long title. It's a NIH-funded project, and the PI is called Neil Alexander. So just to give you a little bit of a context of why we decided to do this project, is that we first, in Colombia, leishmaniasis, especially cutaneous leishmaniasis, is a big public health concern. Nobody really knows the real burden of the disease. And also the effectiveness of the interventions, so the drugs that we use for treating leishmaniasis is not known. Well, why? Because these are pictures of endemic regions in the country, so you can see how hard it is to go there. And 80% of the cases come from rural communities, so this is more or less the setting where the disease occurs. And so we have many challenges. For those who are not familiar with the disease, treatments for leishmaniasis are intramuscular injections of meglumine antimoniate, which are administered daily, so an adult can receive 2 intramuscular injections per day during 20 days. So if you live there, who is going to put you the injections? If not, then you have to go to the nearest health facility, so you stop working for these 20 days. So there are many challenges related to adherence to the treatment, so we don't really know. Outside of clinical trials where you have a control setting, where you are calling the patients for the dose, if people is really adherent to the treatment. And also, we made an internal study, so we are a reference center for CL. And for those patients who are not inside of a clinical trial or a clinical study in CDAIM, for those who are treated outside of the context of a study, only 40% of them come back for the follow-up visits after treatment. So there is not national data on effectiveness, and in the region, only 36% of the notified cases have data on results of or outcomes of treatment. So just to give you an idea why that happens, so this is one of our endemic sites. Over 3,000 square kilometers, so it's a very large municipality. So many people have to reach by the rivers to reach the island. So it's a very challenging context. And we also have another added problem, and it's the internal conflict. So for health workers to reach these areas, sometimes it's very dangerous. And sometimes just cannot go. So we want to reduce these critical knowledge gaps in terms of burden of disease and effectiveness of treatment to help the control of the disease. And so we have 3 main aims. So one is to estimate the underreporting and the underascertainment of via different strategies. The second one is develop a niche model, so based on environmental factors and vector presence, we want to predict where is more likely to have CL cases, and then to estimate the effectiveness of the standard of care using health tools led by community leaders. So we think only the community is the ones who live there are the ones who actually can reach those places. Because even you have the Misión Médica, I don't know, these signs and everything, sometimes even if you have that, you just can't go to certain places. So this is the target of our study. So basically, this is, I think you are all familiar with the iceberg model and things, right? So this is the ones that we want to aim for, those who are infected and have certain symptoms about the disease. And this is how the 3 aims integrate. So this is basically we have something using the public health records in Colombia. It's called CVigila, chain referral, different strategies, all based on the community. And this is the analysis methods that we're going to use for estimating the hidden burden of the disease and the treatment follow-up. So we are also going to do community-based intervention for assessment, the follow-up of treatment. We have some experience about it in Tumaco, but we want to implement it also into other study sites. So we want to adapt this strategy to the new sites, and basically we want to use, because we don't have health facilities in all the townships, we have a school or a community, we call like a school community, because it's the teachers, the parents, the students. So we want this can be the people who can help us to identify the cases, so the community health volunteer using a mHealth tool can make a to assess a suspected case. And then if it's, so we have this, it's a prediction rule that we have, so if it's over or under a certain threshold, is more, it might be more or less likely to be leishmaniasis. So those who has a likelihood of being CL, then they will be referred to the local health facilities in the nearest township. So this is like the representation of the communities, and also this is something that it has been already developed, so we are going to also to adapt it to different study sites. So we have, sorry, it's in Spanish. So we have this predictive diagnosis that we made. Once we have a confirmed case, then it will be into a system, and then we will assign the nearest community health volunteer to make the follow-up of the case. Right, the video dot was sort of adapting this directly observed therapy from tuberculosis using the community health volunteers. But the problem is they cannot go, even if it's the same region or the same township, really it can be 1 hour by boat, or so it's very far. So we developed this strategy with the leaders, and they say that it's more feasible for them to go only once a week, just to visit them, and then they ask for information about the treatment. So they collect information about the symptoms that might be adverse events. So they have like a checklist. They ask for it, and they also take, they count the blisters of miltefosine, because for this context, it's most likely to be miltefosine, because injections is very difficult to administer there. And then they make the count, they give the drug for the next week, and then that's how they make the follow-up. And after the treatment, also the app allows to make a photographic assessment of the lesions. So this can be sent, so they store the information in the cell phone until it reaches a network. So whenever it can get connected, then it sends the information, and it can be monitored by the healthcare worker, by the physician or the nurse of the leishmaniasis programs. And they can then know, okay, if this patient needs to come back to the facility because it looks like it's not healing, and its schedule of visits is according to the national guidelines for leishmaniasis. So these are the 2 interventions. And it says the 3 study sites. So this is Tumaco, which I already mentioned, and we also have 2 in the Andean region. It is also the target of the study.
My only concern is that it's just too big to be used in this workshop. Maybe you can think of using one component.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe you have 2 aspects, like looking at the true burden. Maybe we could limit to looking at true burden, because it may be very challenging for you to work on this whole project in this 2-3 days time. That was my only suggestion.
But from us, I think looking at true burden will not be IR questions. So it's more the intervention component.
Okay, so then you can use the...
So we were having this discussion before. So we think maybe the treatment follow-up, this is an intervention that we have adapted already. So this is where we wanted to focus. Sorry that we did not clarify that. Yes.
Okay, for the next one will be from Tunisia.
So we'll continue with the cutaneous leishmaniasis, but with a simpler project and different side. So our project's title is the psychosocial impact of cutaneous leishmaniasis scars on women in 3 endemic regions in Tunisia. So, like Maria said, cutaneous leishmaniasis is a global health concern with an estimated 0.7 to 1.2 million new cases each year. Most of these cases occur in the Americas, Central Asia, Middle East, and the Mediterranean region. In Tunisia, so the burden continues to be significant. We have also underreporting, but we estimate that we have from 2,000 to 10,000 cases per year. It's endemic in rural areas in several parts of the country, especially in the center and the south of Tunisia. And we can see the picture. So here we have rural arid regions. These women live with the resulting scars, and in which extent do these scars affect their psychology and quality of life. So the study, as I said, will take place in 3 endemic regions in the center of Tunisia. So 3 governorates, Kairouan, Sidi Bouzid, and Gafsa. So our study will be qualitative, using in-depth interviews. We'll use purposive sampling.
Similar issue as with the previous one, which is that for an IR, if you can just go back to your slide on the objectives. I think the latter objectives is what would fit a good IR proposal.
While they are preparing, I just wanted to also let you know there's water behind. The reason why we kept the water bottles there is that in the previous workshops, these tables are not so sturdy. We had a lot of accidents, a lot of water bottles falling and spilling and everything. So we decided we keep the bottle there so you can fill your cups alone and keep it. It's a bit risky because once you remove the lid, it's no longer stable. So I forgot to tell you this. I'm sorry.
We are from Indonesia, and we just thought this topic last night, and we made this presentation this morning. So if it is not as impressive or it's not, I'm sorry. So we will pick the TB in prison. The title is TB agent in prison. So I would like to show this image. This is the prison in Indonesia. I think it's a lot similar with the other country too. So why we choose this topic? Because prison is TB reservoir, and the incidence is much more higher than in general population, and the TB itself is number 4 disease that occurs in prison in Indonesia, and also Indonesia is second most. Oh, third now. Sorry, it's third. And TB is number 2 cause death in Indonesian prison. Is reported in 2011, and the fidelity of the screening program is low. It is based on the data. This is from my previous study. I do study in fidelity of screening program in prison in Yogyakarta and Surakarta, and the research shows that the fidelity is quite low. And the context, I did the study. We would like to the study in Surakarta and Yogyakarta prison, and from the national program, the screening there are 4 screening is entry screening, mass routine screening, contact screening, and also release screening, passive case finding. However, in the prison, the inmate itself, they don't really trust the healthcare provider in the prison. That's why the passive case finding here is a bit tricky too. And why the fidelity is low? They thought the research shows that they have no sufficient resources and no support from prison system. Health is not the priority in the prison system. No integrated program in the prison, and there is no integration with other staffs other than health staff in the prison. And we need agent to stop TB, armed with skills in symptom screening and skills in TB education. Why? Because health education and health promotion in the prison itself is not sufficient, because the one who responsible for the health promotion is not even health staff, it's other division. That's why we need the skills for the TB education and TB promotion. And for the agent of TB in the prison, it is from the inmates, and they can teach the other inmates, and they also can do symptom screening among themselves. And the research question here is that how is the feasibility to conduct these strategies in this context? It's in the Surakarta and Yogyakarta prison, and to explore what's the challenge in implementing these strategies. The aims to improve TB screening implementation in prison, and the objective is, the general one is to assess the feasibility in conducting this strategy of TB agent in the prison. And this basic one is to conduct training on TB and to train the inmates how to conduct health education and health promotion, and also to explore the challenge. Why, for the additional, why we choose the TB agent? Because in Jakarta, this strategies is effective to be conducted in Jakarta. However, it is not. It hasn't been implemented yet in Yogyakarta and Surakarta. So, thank you so much.
If we have opinions and comments and suggestions that would add value to the other groups, just feel free to speak, right?
So thank you, Lutfi, and now we fly back to Ghana. Okay.
All right, good morning again. So, from CT to TB, now we're going to cholera. So, the title for our project that we are considering for this workshop is Improving Community-Based Implementation of WASH Interventions for the Control of Cholera in Ghana. So, this is a map that we are using to help us understand the importance for this. So, cholera outbreaks in Ghana is usually epidemic. So, and we usually have about like 5-year intervals, and then it peaks again. So our last peak that we had was 2014. That's why I'm showing this map. This is the map of Ghana that indicates what we call the hotspots. And most of these hotspots are urban populations, highly mobile, and some of them are slums. Let us know the importance. But for us, as an IR project, we are hoping that through the implementation or the conduct of this study, we will be able to understand the impact of and also develop ways to improve interventions. WASH interventions are implemented across the country by different international NGOs, local NGOs, whatever, you can name it. Lots of money goes into it. However, whenever we have outbreaks, it moves and sweeps through the country. We are hoping that since lots of the interventions, we hope that the communities that are supposed to adopt them, we are hoping that communities will be empowered, the health systems within the communities will also be empowered to adopt some of these interventions. Within the communities, there are specific stakeholders that we are looking at. We are hoping that food vendors, for instance, teachers within these communities, opinion leaders, and also community health workers are the ones that we are hoping will pick up some of these strategies that we are working towards. Those statistics, we know that sub-Saharan Africa is highly affected, and Ghana as well. In 2014, the data that I was showing, Ghana together with DRC, that's DR Congo, as well as Nigeria, in 2014 contributed 83% of the cases that we had in the entire sub-Saharan Africa, which means that the problem is big. And when we pick the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, Lesla, through their distribution study in 2018, make us understand that 200 million people living within the sub-Saharan African region are living in places that we have incidents, and we know how it sweeps through, so making it important for us to look at it. Communities that are hardest hit by cholera usually perform poorly on WASH interventions. That is why we want to focus on just the WASH interventions. And the persistence of cholera outbreaks in Ghana means that there is something that we are not getting right through the implementation process, and we are hoping that we'll study it and get that right. So these are the questions that we have. Might be big, but we are pulling it from a bigger study that we have submitted, so we'll see how we'll work around this. So for us, the question is, what are the contextual factors and determinants that hinder or facilitate the adoption of these WASH interventions that are implemented throughout the country? Because we want to focus on behavioral change strategies, we also want to find out some of the key factors that can lead to behavioral changes within the communities that we are going to study. And as we study the communities, we want to co-design. We don't want to just design the interventions, but we want to co-design content and mode of delivery of an intervention that will target the barriers and enablers that we identify when we do our contextual study. How do we build capacity for the communities so that they take up the WASH interventions by themselves for sustainability? Our focus is on the hotspots, what we call the hotspots. So there are these places that every time there is an outbreak, they are the affected communities. That is what we call the hotspots, and they are the areas that we'll be looking at. We also want to have an impact on the national policy on WASH. So when we study all of this, how can we translate this into policies working with the different stakeholders? So the context, as I mentioned, a lot of WASH interventions are being implemented. However, the country as a whole is performing poorly on WASH interventions as a whole. And unfortunately, according to a joint monitoring program report by WHO and also UNICEF, Ghana as a country was ranked 7th as the filthiest, considering the slums and all these areas where we perform poorly on WASH interventions. In terms of context, whenever we pick some of these hotspots, we are looking at slums with highly mobile populations. However, within these slums or in the areas of these slums, we have what we call Ghana Health Service institutions that are working there. We have facilities that are there. We also have community health workers that are working in these communities. We have policymakers who make the policies that inform them, as well as the the communities themselves. As a context, we are hoping that for sustainability, we cannot work by ourselves. We want to create a rapport between these stakeholders together with us as researchers, so that we make sure that whatever interventions or implementation strategies that we come up with will be adopted by the communities for sustainability. Yeah, so that is for the aim. The total aim is to strengthen and empower the health systems and also communities for them to implement and sustain the WASH interventions and the strategies. These are the specific objectives that we would be working with. First, to assess the contextual factors and identify barriers and facilitators that influence the adoption of WASH interventions. Through this, we would want to select or prioritize some of these strategies and package them in a way that would be useful. We want to evaluate the effectiveness, improve stakeholder uptake, and also try to engage policymakers in the country. Thank you very much.
Clarification?
Questions?
Oops. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I think we will have a break, but we earlier. So 30-minute breaks or?
Yeah, 30-minute break. And we know you're all coming from different regions of the world. I don't know whether you reset your clocks, your mobile phones, and then we always have problems. So we have a clock out there. So we take 35 minutes and we come at 10 minutes to 11. But in this tea break, please complete your registration, signatures, and all other things. I think the toilet is up there. So you can also kind of familiarize yourself. So you have 35 minutes and then we meet 10 minutes to 11. Yeah. I think we stuck to time, which is very good, I think, because we are a small team of people. So this is going to be a bit of reflection of learning that happened in the GHRP. Some of you are very familiar with GHRP, it might be a repetition. But some of you who come with more of an IR background, it's also important to have this very important session very clear, because the whole exercise that's going to happen hereafter depends upon this risk assessment. So it's important to understand the risk assessment. We also decided to distribute all these slide sets to you, so don't even worry about taking them. We're going to be uploading onto the Moodle. So the learning objectives for this session, very briefly, just to introduce GHRP, not to waste a lot of time. And we have a set of about 8-9 principles. I'm not even going to read them, but it'll be there in the slide sets. But what is most important is we are going to look at risk versus benefit and how this is going to be applicable to scientific aspects as well as to the project management. This is fundamental to all the exercises that you will be doing. So we spend a little time on the risk versus benefit, and also learn how to do a risk assessment and how can we put in place measures to mitigate. And I listened to the very interesting presentations from this morning. So I'm already thinking these are some examples I should quote, and you're bringing up exactly the same. So I'm going to use examples from the proposals that you have presented. Something all of us as researchers know. You have a research question, you put it into a protocol, you develop tools for collecting data, you actually do the data collection, management, analysis, and you come up with your report. You may have a positive or a negative finding. So this is something fundamental and common to all kinds of research. But if you look at what are some current standards of biomedical research or health research, you're all using a lot of standards. Can you just name a few of the standards that you're familiar with? Yeah? Yes, GCP. The first and foremost that comes to us is, I think, GCP, right? So we also have quite a number of other good practices. The ones in red are those that are required by regulatory authorities. Plus we have a lot of them in like black color that are not required. So you have GLP. So if it's not human beings but it's animals and is in vitro, there's a standard called GLP. If it's a product that has to be manufactured, we have GMP. Then we also have good agricultural practices, because today we're talking about a lot of herbal products. I think it's popular all through the world, right? So we have a lot of these standards. But the first thing, like Maria said, I think GCP is the one that comes to our mind first. Now, GCP is a very good standard because it's focusing on two elements. It's saying we need to ensure the rights, safety, and well-being of the human participants, and we need to be sure about the data that is generated. It's a good standard from that sense. But the biggest limitation is that it is very, very bureaucratic. It is very intensive, that when it is not legally required, you talk about GCP, immediately they say, oh, mine is not a clinical research. Like all of you brought up, nobody brought up clinical research. It's all about infectious agents, it's all about health, but it's not a clinical research. So the first thing is to step back and say, oh, that's not applicable to me, right? So the limitations being that in interventional research, it's an applicable one, but if it's an implementation or an operational research, or if it's epidemiological studies, GCP is not the standard. So what is the next standard that we can have? If we find a way of escaping from the GCP, then don't we respect the rights, safety, and well-being of the participants? Is that not important? Is not the quality of data important? So what do we come up with, right? So TDR, actually keeping this in mind, that we are doing a lot of research. Maybe I think of all the research that is done, there's only a very small percentage that fits into this GCP. But the principles of GCP, of protecting the human participant and data quality, is a must in all the kind of research proposals that you have brought to this, right? So this is why we have this GHRP, and the GHRP is only going to focus on ethics and quality. So we are all talking about research, not clinical, but involving human participants. So therefore we need to respect their rights, safety and well-being. And we need to ensure that we generate credible data. So this data can be helpful for decision making. So this is fundamental in the GHRP course, right? So I'm not going to go through these slides. These are a set of principles that we thought, like GCP has about 13 principles. We just came up with some 7, 8 principles. You can read through them and let us know whether you think this is appropriate, this covers everything, or maybe this could be improvised. We'll get this concept very, very clearly. So let's consider this scenario where there's a 2-year-old child is left alone in the kitchen and there is a pot of boiling water on the stove. What could go wrong? How could you use this definition of risk and harm? What are the risks that you see in this scenario? And can you think of one possible harm that can occur in this scenario?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I think that one of the risks is that the little child is playing close to the pot and maybe there is the possibility that the pot fell. And the harm will be that he will be burned.
Right? So the risk is the factor that, can you turn off your microphone? Yeah. There's interference, that's why. Anybody else can think of anything else. So she says that there's a pot of water, there's the child, and the harm that she sees is the scald or the burn that the child is going to sustain. Anything else that you see here? Is the stove on or off? Can you also touch the stove and directly get some burn? The water can cause the scald, the stove can cause the burn. Yeah? So you see that there is risk, but does that mean this child is definitely going to be burnt or this child is definitely going to be having a scald? No. Right? So now you see the difference. There is a risk, but we are not sure if this risk can turn into a harm or no. Right? So when we define risk, we say, what is the probability of a harm resulting from the risk and what is the magnitude of this harm that is happening, right? So a risk is just a fact that there is a likelihood of a harm, and risk also means that there is like a certain intensity of the harm, but risk per se does not mean that there is going to be a harm, okay? So the same holds good with benefits as well. So benefits also, there's a likelihood that there is a benefit. There is also a magnitude of the benefit that can happen. So let's say in your research, you might say, oh, this is going to be of benefit. But how likely is this going to be benefiting? Is it going to be benefiting 100%? Or is it likely that it's only going to benefit 60%? And how much is going to be the intensity of the benefit? Right? For some, maybe there's only very little benefit. Maybe for some, there is a very significant benefit. So you can look at both the magnitude and the probability. And if we look at research, I think I saw you came up with a lot of risks already this morning. So we in research are usually tuned to looking at physical harm or physical risks. Psychological, TB in prison, cutaneous leishmaniasis, the scars. So we need to look at what kind of psychological risk are we bringing. Social and cultural. When we say slums in Ghana, we are trying to actually discriminate a particular population already and say that this is the population that I'm studying, right? So these are all the aspects that we need to look at. Legal. I believe in Indonesia they had a study about drug abuse and then they had issues around that. In countries where use of drugs is criminalized or homosexuality is criminalized, and you're trying to do a study about drugs or about homosexuality, you're directly leading your participants to some kind of a legal risk, right? So you need to consider the different kinds of risk, not just the physical risk. And same way, you also need to consider a whole list of benefits. We won't go into the details because this is something that's been covered in the online course. But look at risk from these very many perspectives and look at benefits also from different perspectives. So what are we going to do now is this. Now, I have a given risk, and how likely is this risk going to become a harm? And what is going to be the impact of this harm? And if you can map it across, you will see that there are some that are hitting high likelihood and high impact. And it is those kind of risks that you really need to see how you're going to address. So if you map all the risks in your study, you might find that some of them are highly likely, but then there's no impact. Then there may be some that have high impact, but are less likely, and you may think, no, I need to also address that. Or you may look at those that have both likelihood as well as impact. And this depends upon the kind of study. If you're talking about stigmatization and personal psychological suffering, maybe I would look at even just the impact, even if it's not high likelihood, right? So you may have to decide which one of those is going to be priority in your research. So let's just go back to that scenario and see how we can apply this risk benefit thing. Now, imagine if this pot has a lot of hot boiling water and the child is not restrained and it can reach the stove. Then you see the impact of having a burn or a scald is high, and the likelihood is high because the child is not restrained. But if you put the same child on a pram and you restrict the child, and there is no stool, there is no nothing that it can reach out, but the pot of water is still there, then what will happen is that the impact is very high, even if that water still falls, but the likelihood that this incident will happen becomes extremely small, right? So that way, what is mitigation? So instead of keeping the child just moving around, if I can put the child onto a chair and restrain the child from moving, I'm actually changing this scenario. What was something like 25 has come down to a score of 5. Now, let's look at another situation. There is no boiling water, right? But the child is not restrained and can reach the stove. So now the likelihood becomes very high, but the impact is less. But still, I told you the stove can be a problem. Is this stove something that can be easily turned on, that the child will be able to still sustain a burn? So you can imagine how this scenario changes the likelihood and the impact. And what we would like you to do in the next group activity is exactly this risk-based assessment. What we would like you to do is identify all your critical process and critical data. Those processes and those data that will impact the participant safety as well as data quality. Now, in a study like the one that came up with Colombia, the use of this M app can be very different in different settings. Some may be having better internet connectivity, better people, others may not be having. So is that going to impact the quality of my data? So is that going to impact the confidentiality? You said this will be there, I take a picture and then I'm going to send it across. So what happens to this picture? Suppose it's just got stuck in between. Can anybody else access? People who should not be seeing the pictures, right? So you need to look at your own research and see what are your critical processes, what are your critical data. Do you see risk? And if you see risk, do you think this risk is of priority? And how are you going to mitigate, right? So I just give you so you map your processes and then you do a risk identification. And when we talk about risk identification, we are talking about 2 levels. In your online course, you had some elements related to the project management and some related to the actual study. So we want you to split and look at it in that level. So what I mean is research level. Let's look at the study design. Now I'm going to do a cluster randomization because I find that this method is the most appropriate for it. But imagine Phyllis already said her population is mobile. In a cluster randomized trial, if the population is mobile, like let's say I'm cluster randomizing her study to say one group is healthcare workers, one group is school teachers, another one is church pastors. But people are moving between this. So does that affect the quality of your data? Right? So what we want you to think through is at this level of study design, my study is going to involve 10,000 participants. There is no way I can take individual informed consent. So what do I do? Is that a risk? Can I make choices for them? No, right? So we want you to think through like this in detail, every step that could affect the safety of the participant and the data quality, both from a scientific perspective as well as from a systems perspective. Like I have 10 sites. The likelihood that I may lose my study staff in 3 sites is extremely high because of the challenging circumstances under which I work. So what will happen to my study? What kind of backup can I have? I can't stop my study, right? So what do I do? So you see the risks are at 2 levels. Risk is one at the scientific, at the ethical level, and the other one is at your project management level. I have equipment. Now, this equipment is 10 different ones. So is that going to affect the quality of my study? So what do I do about it? Right? So we want you to look both at the research level and at a project management level. And then you do a risk analysis and say, I have about 12 risks, but it's not important for me to address these 6 because I think they are low likelihood and low magnitude, so I don't worry about it. I have some which are high impact, high likelihood, and therefore I'm going to focus on these kind of risks, right? And you need to work around it and come up with mitigation measures. And as I told you, the mitigation measures in that exercise was restraining the child, removing all the high chairs and stools and things like that. So you can think of whatever will be the mitigation measures. We're just giving you some example. Maybe I have 10 different sites, so I'm going to have some standardized procedure. I'm going to give the same handheld device in all the sites, so then they use the same kind of Android device and the same M-app, and I don't have difficulties, one using an iPhone, one using an Android, and I don't have these kind of problems. It's something that you may come up with. So you decide to have either standardized procedures, or I cannot take an individual consent. Maybe I'm going to do a community consent, right? So you may think of different kinds of ways of mitigating. Now, I'm going to be sending out the data through this M-app. So what am I going to do? How am I going to ensure the confidentiality of the data, right? Or the research team is not so very well qualified in some sites because I don't have educated people. I only have uneducated people. So how am I going to increase their capacity to be able to use this M-app, right? So we want you to think both at research level and at systems level. What are the different kinds of risks? How likely these risks are going to become harm? And what could you do to mitigate these risks? It's not only in this session, when you write your protocol, when you write your informed consent form, when you are making your data collection tools, you will be asking these very same questions. I have only this kind of people. Is this data collection tool good? Will this impact the quality of the data, right? So it goes back to these 2 principles. Is it affecting participant safety and rights? Is it affecting the data quality? Okay, now let me stop here. Yes, Maria.
I have a question and a comment.
Yes.
We had to switch in certain parts to paper forms because, well, it was the priority for them, for us, for them to be safe. So
Yes.
that's my question. If you also have to include,
Is a
such
very,
risk.
very pertinent question. And this is also equally important. This is going to be covered in the session on the study team and the study site, where we will be talking about it, but it's very relevant. It's not just to the research participant, it's also to the study team, right? Because if you're going to be shot down because of conflict, this is also not what we are expecting. So it is to the participant safety, it is to the study team safety, and to the data quality. It applies to everything. Yes. You had a comment and a question, and both are the same. Okay. 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 So this is the crux, right? So what you will be doing in the next exercise is actually looking at the risk benefit, looking at all the possible risks at a research level, at a project level. Now this is like a project level question. I have security issues to my staff. So what do I do about it? How can I mitigate this risk? That's what you're asking, right? And what we would like you to do is review your proposal, your thoughts, whatever you have in mind, identify all the potential risks that you could think of, and how are you going to minimize these? By doing this study, are you stigmatizing these people who are otherwise happy, right? So we want you to look at your own study and try and map all the critical process and the data. Prison is a fantastic example for this kind of a situation. What is a risk? If you now say they are not doing screening, maybe you're even putting the healthcare workers at risk, because your guideline says that they should be screening, but they are not screening. So your result, your research report is actually going to put your healthcare providers into risk, right? So that's exactly like what Maria said. So you need to look at it like this. What are the risks? How likely are these risks? What is the magnitude and the consequences of this risk? And what should I do in order to ensure that we protect the participants and the study team, and then we also get good quality data. So this is the exercise, and we're just giving you some templates. It doesn't have to be exactly in this format. You can even think of a different format that we could subsequently use. So what are those risks? You can just map everything, and then you say, I don't prioritize this. I only put these 6 things on my priority list, and I'm thinking that these are some measures I could minimize. Same way, I think there are these key ethical issues. I cannot do informed consent. I'm talking of several thousands. I'm only going to go to the community leaders. So what am I going to do? So we want you to just look at your proposal and work on these 2 slides. And then we will be coming around, sitting with you and discussing and facilitating the thing. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Phyllis. I think a lot of this will depend upon the kind of literature review that you have done on your topic. Are there any activities done on, let's say, WASH interventions in your kind of setting? What is it that they have come up with? So you think maybe, okay, this is something I did not perceive to be, but then there's some literature evidence for me to support that maybe this is an issue. So that's why it's a topic which you will be better than any of us, because you have a lot more background information about it. But yes, sometimes it's hard to predict the likelihood. And then you start thinking it's a low risk. And then you start working, and then you see, oh, no, there's a security issue. I did consider, but I didn't think that is so likely to happen. Now I need to change. I cannot use mobile applications maybe. So this is also a process that you don't just do only in the beginning. This is a continuous process, because your research itself is very dynamic and growing. There's every likelihood you may have made errors and you may have to modify. But given the information, given the data that you have, what do you think is the likelihood and what do you think is the intensity? And then you start working along those lines. Yeah. So you have, I think, yes, I think it's been uploaded. I think if you put it onto if you go to the Moodle, it is there for you on the Moodle. If you have difficulty accessing, we can even send it to you by email, because I think, yeah, there's problem with the internet. Okay, so what we would do is put it on a flash disk and give you. Yeah, so you can distribute yourselves in those small tables, so that allows you more room to talk and discuss. And you can take about 45 minutes to work on this, because we saved some time.